This session is about regulation and governance and certain specific aspects of it. Now, we had 4 questions or 5 questions that we all began to talk about, but that gives us a very long brief, which is a lot of an individual talking and then another individual talking. And we thought that since certain issues of a governance nature have come up that seem to provoke a lot of interest, and since recent developments have provoked a lot of heat, if not light, that it'd be nice if we got into an argument in front of you. So what we're going to try to do is to get into an argument. Now, this is, in a sense, about regulation as it relates to the future internet. So the prefatory remark is that as an object of regulation, the future internet is not an obvious first choice. In fact, even regulation of the internet is a slight historical accident. We have reasons why we regulated critical national infrastructures, like, for example, telecommunications, and societal reasons why we regulated content, and economic reasons why we regulated markets that were prone to tipping or other forms of market abuse. The internet, as it was regulated, became an object of interest in part because it overlapped with those existing domains, in part because some of the things that those domains really worked hard to regulate arguably no longer needed regulation, or at least not regulation embedded, as Philippe reminded us before, in a national regulatory agency context. But in many cases, of course, one could simply step back from regulation if one had the political courage to do it, which very few regulators do. There were other issues which became much harder. So cloud computing, for example, raises the issue of data mobility and the location where data are stored and processed and the visibility of those locations in a very critical way. Because if you put legal conditions on that kind of data mobility, then you kill the reason for having the cloud in the first place, which is that very flexibility and the delegation of authority to people to do technical decisions on technical grounds, because we conflated the technical and the societal or legal, the sort of privacy-related issues. And then it may be that there are some things that arise on the internet which are unique, which were not problems before. But it's certainly true that issues of, for example, fraud or issues of consumer protection may in some cases be much harder, because simple solutions like the country of origin principle turn out not to be so simple when you don't know or can't know what the country of origin is, let alone what the protections are, and where the arguments why I, as a single consumer, should take the trouble to find out what everybody I do business with is obliged to give me. It would seem rather more obvious if it really was consumer protection that it should go with where people are. And the final thing is that we have had, from these different regulatory histories, a series of directives, regulations, and member state laws, each of which made sense in its own terms, but which in combination may have some unfortunate and unforeseen consequences. For example, the AVMS directive, the e-services directive, and the general thrust of the telecom services regulatory package. So that's a huge area, and we're obviously not going to get into it. But there are certain domains in which it may be useful to have a more pointed discussion. Luis Barroso is going to start us off from the context of privacy, which is an area that I'm very interested in. And then Ilke Lakanemi will talk to us about issues related to the digital single market. And then at that point, I think we shall try to have a debate, because I will rejoin on some of those issues with help from the audience, and we'll have a provocative discussion. And I'm reliably informed that it is okay to talk about PRISM and the NSA. It may even be okay to talk about Echelon. I don't know. We'll see. So with that, let me turn it over to Luis.
Good afternoon to all. To begin with, let's open the door to the world, to think that we are here now, today, in Aveiro, discussing privacy issues, discussing security issues, discussing the future internet, and all around the world, in the other countries of Europe, in Hong Kong, of course, in China, in the United States. It's the news of the moment. It's the news to open and to appear on the first page in every newspaper all around the world. So I think it's a good time to think, where are we when we talk about privacy in the internet? The problems that Edward Snowden focused yesterday in his interview are not from now. They are from many, many years ago. And, sorry, this slide is in Portuguese, it's the only one. And we can find similar titles, similar dangers, similar scams, frauds, crimes, and so on, from many years ago, in also as well in many first page of Portuguese newspapers or of other European newspapers. I think that all of us are already aware about many. I want to show you just an example of what is happening on our back. What is happening on our back? For instance, let me use the internet as any user could use it. For instance, to make a search about Facebook, perhaps. Facebook. I will use the Facebook, it's here. Now I will use the search engine for YouTube, for instance. Everyone, of course, has already used YouTube. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm only using the Portuguese domains till now. Let's try another well-known sap.pt. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake.
It's okay.
It's already?
Didn't know what you meant.
Okay. Okay. And I think perhaps it's one more. A newspaper, a Portuguese newspaper could be what? A bola. A bola.pt. Okay. So, till now, at least I think that I'm only working in Portugal, in Portuguese domains. At least I'm for sure working in European domains, because the Google here, as you can see, is in Portuguese, is location directed. I've been in youtube.pt, Facebook, Sapo, and Abola. It's still working. Sapo and Abola is still working. I'm just waiting a little bit, but perhaps it's not necessary. Now, what do you have here? Here is the set of sites that I have visited and those that I have visited without knowing anything about them. And for me, it's a danger that we have in internet. Because we need to give our consent to make any process about me. We need to be aware what they are doing with our data. But what is happening is, when I go to YouTube, my data goes to google.pt, that one is PT, goes to itime.com, that one I cannot, Google syndication, anyway, Google Analytics for sure. Okay, but it's with Google like that. Now, here in Facebook, I have also connections without knowing why. SAP.pt was connected to Facebook. Akamai.net. Okay, sometimes I didn't visit OLX and so on, because what's important is that I have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sites, and data about me is already more than 15 sites at least, and I was not informed about anything. For me, and for the data protection community, it's an important issue to oblige the controllers of treatments of processing in the internet world to say to the user what he is doing, what they are doing with the data that belongs to them. And all those problems can occur in our age, in the age of internet, but we already have some regulation about internet. My colleague began to talk about regulation. We already have a framework, an European framework, to deal with privacy problems when we are talking about the internet, when we are talking about problems in each of the European countries. There is already, but it doesn't work. The present, what we have at this moment is this. We have a directive, an European directive, and a European directive that is a milestone in data protection issues. The directive is the umbrella of all the, you can say that it's the umbrella of all the data protection environment in Europe. Then we have in Portugal an Act 67/98, and we have also more 26 data protection laws. And that is the problem, because we are dealing with global problems. We cannot have 27 solutions. We need a global solution as well. And when I'm talking about a global solution, I know, and all that are in this room know, that we need to go out of Europe. We cannot have a global solution without thinking of China, of United States, of India. That's why it's so difficult. Sometimes many can say it's impossible to try to regulate the internet. But when I say that it's important to regulate the internet, I'm not dreaming to have a regulation about everything that happens in the internet. What I think, what I dream, is to have a regulation that better protect our right in the internet, that better protect our privacy. If someone is making something with my data, I need to know that someone is doing it. I need to be able to say no or yes. For sure, I can, if you read the Hotmail privacy statement, they say that they read our code. We give them the right to read the contents of our emails. If perhaps you don't know, but they wrote that. You just need to read. But sometimes we try to not to see it. But what is important is first to know all the treatments that are made about us. Second, we can decide. We can give or not to give our explicit consent. Why we need a new legal data protection framework? We need a new legal data protection framework because the one that we have at this moment had a good role, but in nowadays it's no more possible to sustain such framework. Why? It appeared in 1995. It was the infancy of the internet. For many of them, many of the people that are here in this room, internet was nothing in 1995. And now we can talk with our familiars, with our relatives, with our friends. We can say what we like, what we dislike, and to share it with our friends in the social network. It's a completely different world. And the Directive 95, the Directive of 95 was not prepared to deal with that kind of problems. That's why in nowadays, in the 21st century, we need a directive, not a directive, a regulation and a directive as well, that can deal better with all these new problems. That's the goal, the main goal of the new European legal framework. The context that is supporting this new framework is the opinion that users and that stakeholders, all the players in the internet, have about the present situation. Now, even so the majority of European internet users feel responsible for the safe handling of their personal data, almost all Europeans are in favor of equal protection rights across the European Union. That means that if I'm in Germany, in Portugal, in Greece, in Italy, my right must be the same. And what is happening now is the different laws in the different countries make a very strange building of privacy in Europe. Always with the same umbrella, of course, directive, but in many different applications, with many different applications around the different state members. And citizens now are very worried with the situation on the internet. I have some numbers of the last Eurobarometer of 2 years ago, and 74% of Europeans think that disclosing personal data is increasing part of modern life. 74. But at the same time, 72 of internet users are worried that they give away too much personal data. So we are conscious. We know that it's normal in nowadays to trade and to change data. Personal data is money of our internet age. But we know that, but we don't trust. The majority of the users don't trust in the organism that have our data. Particularly, they don't trust in companies that have our data, and even more particularly, they don't trust that companies don't share information about themselves, about the users receiving money for that change of information. Actually, 72% of Europeans are concerned that their personal data may be misused. 72%. They are worried that maybe companies are passing their data to other companies, and that is all without their permission. What is the main problem at this moment when we are talking about making money in the internet, like we saw the importance of the money in our life. In the internet, it's all about money, of course, as well. It's all about money. Our data is money. The companies are making business. And if companies want to win money with the business in the internet, they need to have consumers. The consumers are the users, the internet users. And to buy online, a person, a user, needs to trust in the company that the person cannot see. He needs to have trust in the company, and the company needs to show the consumer that he can trust her. That's a problem that the present framework couldn't solve. We can say, where are we? Where are we when we talk about privacy in internet? The question is made now, is put now in the 2013, but we can see the answer in 1926. And it's true. There is no a completely correct or wrong answer. It depends. Perhaps sometimes I can say that I'm happy with the world I have. But perhaps I can see that I can feel that my problem is the other guy is thinking well, the other guy has reason. And that's why I hope that later in the debate we can see that different opinions will appear according to our point of view about internet and privacy issues. The new regulation will have essential four main tools. Of course, the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union that say that protection of personal data and privacy is a fundamental right of the citizen, and as so must be put in the same level, for instance, than security. I cannot make all my bets in security and to forget the privacy. And of course I cannot do the opposite. We need to have a balance, as in our lives, about everything. And these are both two fundamental rights. Second tool, the convention. Actually, it's already preparing a new tool to substitute the Convention 108. That convention, in nowadays, is also used to evaluate if a country has or not a good level of data protection. Those countries that has not signed the convention out of Europe are not considered as countries to where we can send our data. Countries as Russia, for instance, that in May already signed this convention. For us Europeans, we can consider those countries as countries that have the minimal level of privacy that we want to let our data go to their frontiers, inside their frontiers. Directive, a new directive to deal with the issues of the old third pillar. That's always what I do in my life. I always like to hear new opinions, but I always like to have my own opinion. Now we all listen what is the position of the Commission. Now I hope that we all have also an own opinion. It's our time to play. It's your time also to put some questions. Just some more minutes, please. Thank you for your attention.